Welcome to this installment of Packaging Strategies, where we get to know people in the packaging industry. Joining me today is Laurie Peterson, CEO and founder of Inkbrite, an online platform where brands can create compliant cannabis packaging. Laurie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, Sam. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, me too. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to realize that you could contribute to the cannabis industry?
Sure. I actually came to cannabis from the world of toys. So, in my last role, I was a toy inventor. I had a toy company called Build and Imagine, and I created magnetic building sets, and I was named the Rising Star Toy Inventor of the Year. And
Wow.
after I sold that toy company, I was trying to figure out what to do next. And I was actually battling migraines. And so a friend of mine, I had lunch with her and she suggested that I try cannabis for my migraines. And so she insisted that right after lunch, I go and get my medical card and head to a dispensary. So that was kind of my first day in the world of legal cannabis. And when I bought my very first product, they handed it to me in a baggie. And I spent about $70 that first day. And I remember thinking, okay, why doesn't this baggie look more like a high-end consumer product? This is a legal item. I just bought it. It should look a lot nicer. And I live in California, so recreational legalization was just around the corner at that time. And with that came a need for a lot of innovation with child resistant packaging. And so originally I thought, okay, I could bring these toy inventor skills that I developed and I could bring them into the cannabis industry and I can create really cool packaging and I can invent new ways to handle the child resistant mechanisms. But then when I went out and talked to people, it seemed like cool packaging was just a small piece of the overall need of what people really needed. And I heard over and over, yeah, cooler packaging, that's great. But I really need help with sourcing my packaging. And I really need help with the compliance piece. And it would be really great if you could just take care of all of it, the design, the sourcing, and the compliance. And so we pretty quickly shifted direction away from like, let's invent cool packaging form factors to how do we solve this business problem and make it really easy for people to design and source compliant packaging.
Yeah, I can imagine that that is extremely intimidating to figure out as even a small brand. I feel like you would need a team of people to figure out all of the laws for compliant packaging with cannabis, and they're always changing. I know here in Michigan, there's constantly new packaging regulations happening, and people are having to redo their packaging constantly.
Right. It's such a new
Yeah.
industry that it keeps changing and everyone's basically having to figure it out for the first time. And the thing that's unique about cannabis is that each state has different rules about what must go on the label. So when we talk about compliance and packaging, it's basically what's that information that needs to go on the label. There's more to it than that, but that's the really tough stuff and it's different in every state. So that's something that other industries don't have to deal with. And so you have thousands of new brands come to market for the first time in cannabis, all having to figure out this challenge. And as you mentioned, there's big money brands that can figure it out. They can afford to have their in-house, attorneys
Yeah.
working on this 24/7. But there are, thousands of legacy brands, the ones who have really made cannabis possible, as well as equity brands and just smaller brands come to market. And we want to make sure that they can figure it out as well.
Can you tell me what Inkbrite, the website, does and how it helps brands navigate compliant cannabis packaging?
Yeah, so we're just getting started at Inkbrite. We're still a startup, but what we've launched is an online platform where you can come and easily create customized compliant packaging. So if you can design a holiday card online, you can create packaging with Inkbrite. So what we've tried to do is take this process that normally takes months and involves working with a designer, a compliance expert, or attorney, and then sourcing your packaging from different folks, including possibly printing your labels, getting them applied. So we've tried to take all these different pieces and put it together into an all-inclusive service. So you come to Inkbrite, you choose a form factor you want to customize. So that could be a jar for your flower, it could be a 10 for your pre-rolls, could be a Mylar pouch for your edibles. You choose that and then you select to customize and you go through our online designer. to create a custom package for your brand and for your state's unique regulatory requirements. And if at any point you want to work one-on-one with our designers, you can do that as well. So the whole goal at Inkbrite is to make it, accessible to create this quality compliant packaging. We made it this self-serve platform because we really wanted to democratize access to quality compliant packaging. So by making it a self-serve platform, we're basically like pooling together demand from a bunch of small brands and making it possible to do small order sizes, and also to just automate things as much as possible to make it fast and easy.
And how does Inkbrite collaborate within the industry, like the packaging industry, to bring brands professional packaging?
So Inkbrite is really a platform. So we are looking to curate a selection of the best packaging out there. So that means we're looking to partner with other packaging vendors and feature their items on our site. So as one example, we're a distributor for this this tin company called Case Pack, and I love these child-resistant tins they've created. And Inkbrite's the only way you can buy these in the US at lower quantities. Otherwise, you have to order huge amounts direct from China. So we're looking to find, the best in class of each platform. We're also talking to packaging companies about the possibility of powering customization on their own website. So you can imagine Inkbrite as a technology layer that sits on top of packaging companies to make it easier for them to onboard new customers, to make it easier to offer customization services.
Can you tell me a little bit about how like a package design can help or hinder emerging brands in the cannabis space?
Yeah, I mean, I think packaging is one of the things that can be really intimidating. You could, for example, you could very easily go and work with an agency and spend $75,000 or more on a packaging design. We talked to a tiny brand 2 weeks ago. They hadn't even launched their first product yet. They were self-funded. It was a mom here in the Bay Area who was doing this project, and she had already spent $25,000 with an agency to create the look of her packaging. And she came to Inkbrite and said, okay, well, I just spent all this money and I have a packaging design now that's not compliant and I don't know how to go get it made. And if I got it made, I know it doesn't have the correct information on it. So here she had spent all this money to make something cool and had no way of actually bringing it to market. And so I think that's a challenge. It's like, it's one thing to come up with something cool. It's another to make sure it's easy to get to market and that it's going to perform well on shelf and it's going to meet all the needs technically of that product and also from a compliance standpoint, meet all the requirements. So there's a lot that you have to think about to get it right. And I think that's where mistakes happen is like at some point, some piece of the puzzle doesn't quite come together and it can mean, relabeling, it can mean recalling and destroying. We're even starting to see lawsuits for packaging with claims on it that aren't allowed. So the cost of getting it wrong can be really steep. I know at my last company, when I was the toy inventor, I actually ended up throwing out about 30,000 packages, and they were quite large in size. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough financially, and also it's heartbreaking from an environmental standpoint when you're creating that much waste just because an error was made somewhere in the creation process.
Speaking of packaging waste and sustainability, do you think the cannabis packaging industry, the cannabis industry can coexist with sustainability in the future? Or
Yeah, I think if anyone can get it done, I think it's the cannabis industry. I mean, I think there is still so much work to do. It's really just a work in progress and still just a dream. But I think, people in the cannabis industry are authentically aligned with the goals of sustainability. It just fits the whole ethos of the cannabis industry. And from a packaging standpoint, we've already seen so much innovation come from cannabis in just a couple of years. I mean, looking at all the new mechanisms for creating a child resistant container, it's come so far in a couple years here versus look at what the pharmaceutical industry did in the last 60 years. It was basically like the push and turn top for the pill bottle. That was it. Okay, got it done. No more thinking needs to happen. And now we see so many options just in the last few years, and I have faith more is to come. And I think the same is going to be true of sustainability. And I really hope we do it in a way where we're looking at the full life cycle of that packaging and thinking about, the environmental costs to transport it, the environmental cost to create it, as well as how are we going to dispose of it. So if we look at, that full life cycle, I think we can be truly responsible. At Inkbrite, we want to make sure we're approaching it in a way that's not just greenwashing. We want to make sure that when we stand behind a package as environmentally responsible, that we've really looked at that the full life cycle.
That's awesome. I think sustainability absolutely has to be a part of the cannabis industry in the future, because it's like adding a whole bunch of packaging into the economy of packaging. And
one thing that's holding us back so far, and hopefully we can figure out, is that there's tension between meeting the needs from a regulatory standpoint, like the form factor, meeting the requirements of child resistant, as well as like maintaining the integrity of the product. And then the sustainability, like those can be at odds. It's really quite challenging to achieve sustainability and the child resistant at the same time. So I'm hopeful that there's going to be some, after people get more comfortable with cannabis, there's going to be a little bit easing up of the requirements that'll allow us to be a little bit more innovative from a sustainable standpoint.
And so what are Inkbrite's plans for the future?
Inkbrite, we really see ourselves as a technology startup. And so we want to develop software that's going to make it as easy as possible to create compliant packaging. We are starting in the cannabis industry where the rules are the hardest. We have launched here in California. So our goal is to expand the product types we're supporting, to expand the states. We want to make it really easy as folks grow their brand to go across states. So with the support of Inkbrite software, with the click of a button, you can convert your files from one state to the next. So that's kind of the vision, is to make it not only easy to launch, but easy to grow. And then, we think that our customization platform could be interesting in other industries as well. We see a lot of industries where there's a rise in indie brands. And so we see ourselves as a company that could potentially empower all independent brands to come to market. So we're thinking about areas like beauty and artisan food and beverages as potential places that we can go. So, hopefully the future looks like Inkbrite is the place where a small brand goes when they want to get to market.
That's so cool. Well, that's it for this installment. Thank you so much for joining me, Laurie. And you can learn more and design a custom cannabis package at inkbrite.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Sam. I appreciate everyone watching. Thank you.
Thank you.